And I said, well, food. Everybody likes food. Everybody eats food. You know, everybody understands the relationships of food. But I was like, this is not going to work. I cannot keep this metaphor up the whole time. I said, but it's the only thing I have to work with. So what I'll do is I'll start with food. And if I get lost, then what I'll do is I'll find out where food falls off and find out something else that I could use in its stead. But when I started working through it, I found out how much relationships and eating and cooking and shopping are so much the same thing in principle. So I literally made a manual of how to build and maintain, enhance and repair relationships using food, eating, cooking, and shopping as a metaphor. So it is literally the shopping list and eating list and preparing list of relationships. So any part you're at, there's something in there for you.
So you said earlier that you were a poet. Maybe I'll have you read a poem if you have any at your fingertip.
Yeah.
Let me go to one of the questions that I have. We got so many of them.
But that's a good thing. No questions would have been a problem.
You know, this is such a fundamental question that a lot of times we don't ask. People fall into a lot of people, the boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife fall into their lives, and they're like, okay, well, you know what? That happened to me when I was younger, and I got married to somebody who it was okay, you know? And after a little while, you kind of say, well, let's get married. And they say, okay. That didn't work. And I found out after the fact that it didn't work. At the time, I kind of knew it wasn't gonna, but I was like, it fits for now, and you know, and you talk about that, which is very interesting. The question you ask is, what kind of person do you want in your life? And how many people ask that question? And do they want the answer?
No, most people don't want the answer. And this is the thing about it. When people look at somebody they want in their lives, they usually go by what looks good on paper and what they've been told they should desire. But I'm like this, anything looks good on paper. I can write a list of qualities down on paper and it looks great. But where the problem comes in, we are more than the sum total of our aspects and our qualities. This is how you put them together. It's the difference between a well-built house and a beat-up house. You can take the same material, but the skill of one architect and one construction company will outweigh the other architect and construction company because they have more knowledge and wisdom. So you can say both of these houses are made out of the same thing. It's like, yeah, but this one's going to fall apart in a week, and this one is not. So we have to learn that, one, we are more than the sum total of our parts. It's how we've been put together, how our lives have affected us. And then two, what kind of person do we really want in our lives? Like, if we are lazy people who don't want to get up on Saturday, do we want to marry some kind of military drill sergeant who wants to wake up at 5 o'clock sunshine every Saturday and go jogging? No, come on, we don't, because you're gonna hate him. It's like, I didn't want to get up at 5 in the morning. I just wanted to marry you, and he's gonna look at you like, well, marry me is getting up at 5 in the morning. You knew I do this every day.
That is funny.
You would call me at 10 o'clock, and I tell you, I just came in from a jog. You thought I was gonna stop that when I got with you? Yeah. So what we do is we think, this is us.
Yeah.
This is me. This is him. This is a relationship. Now, we're going to come together, and what we're going to do is we're going to throw off all these many parts of us, and we're going to come together, and we're going to have this relationship, and it's going to look like this. Now, usually the this has nothing to do with who the two people are.
That was my model.
It was the this based on what you thought a relationship and a marriage was, and you thought that, okay, anything that doesn't fit inside this is not going to go. So if I don't want to go hiking, he's going to love me so much that I'm not going to go hiking, and he's looking like,
he's going to go by himself.
Yeah,
and, you know, that's
and he's looking at like, she loves me so much that even if she doesn't want to hike, she's going to hike anyway. So both of you have this idea that things are going to be compromised for love and for marriage, and don't realize that you two are talking about compromising two different things. You know. And so you get together and you realize, like, well, why am I with you? Not that you're not a good person.
Exactly.
It's just that we don't fit together. Not only are we diametrically opposed, we have no concept or idea or desire of changing that opposition. We're cool where we're at. So then it's just like, wow, this is not going to work out. It's been nice.
Yeah, you know, I was telling a friend of mine that, you know, I used to have this model in my head of relationship and marriage where we have two houses. He lives over here and I live over here. You know, where there are times when we're going to want to come together and do things, and there are other times when he's going to want to be over there and I'm going to want to be over there. I used to think I like that. I knew a couple who did that. They were married for many years, didn't like each other very well, had kids and everything, but realized later on in life that they wanted to be together. They remarried. Both of them had 2 houses, and every day on my way to work, I would pass them on the veranda, and he'd be sitting on his side with a cup of coffee, and she'd be sitting on his, and they were very happy. They lived together until he passed away. Yeah. Well, kind of together. And I always used to look at that and think, you know, that could work. And interestingly enough, over the years, people have sent me articles because they know that's how I've kind of looked at things. They've sent me articles of people who are actually now moving towards that. In New York, somebody sent me an article the other day about this couple in New York who, they live in the same apartment building. They're married. They have been married for many years. People see her coming down the hallway in her bed slippers, you know, at 6 in the morning, whatever, and it works for them. So what's wrong with that model? I mean,
well, one, I don't get into right and wrong. I get into effective, ineffective.
Logistically.
Correct, incorrect. The thing about it, if that works for you, that works for you. But what happens, you get into the terminology. Is that a marriage? What are you doing in that situation that you weren't doing before? Y'all both had apartments. Y'all saw each other. You hung out. You went home. So all you're doing is you're being single but calling it marriage. The truth of the matter is, there's a certain level of dedication that comes with a marriage. And there is a joining of the two. If you keep things the exact same, then you're really not doing, what you're not doing is marriage. You like you said, you're being single and you're calling it something else. And it works because it works for everybody. It's like when you don't have the ability to tolerate, and tolerate just means put up with, but not only that, but not accept somebody. The only way you can love them and keep that relationship is through distance. So what you're not doing is you're not married. You're not being married. You're maintaining. What you're saying is, if I get too close to you, I'm going to leave you. So the only way that this marriage is going to work is if we're far enough apart and we have enough distance between us that I don't get to know you that well, and we don't get to interact on that level. Because see, it's different from somebody coming to your house and messing it up and then going home and you cleaning it up. Then somebody coming to your house messing up and then they live there and you got to roll over and be like, I got to clean this up, and you're laying here and all of a sudden there's a resentment there. But if they don't live there, you don't expect that. So the difference between marriage and being single is a level of expectation, the level of dedication, and what you are actually doing. See, when you're married, you just can't get up and leave. When you're single, you can get up, walk to the other apartment, but the same thing, when you look at it, when you're married like that, it gives you the idea that you have this option. You know, if I don't want to deal with you, I can just go next door. It's like, so for real, what are you really doing? Other than the title of marriage, what about what you're doing is indicative of marriage that you weren't doing before? Because the truth of the matter, if that's being married, nobody has to get married.
That's true. That is true. I guess I really never thought it out like that because it worked. It kind of worked mostly in my head, but it kind of worked.
Yeah, and then again, we have to ask ourselves, what's our motivation and what's our ultimate goal? Like I hear people, well, man, back in the day, folks stayed together for 80 years. But yeah, but if you listen to their stories, they didn't stay together 80 years because they were happy. They stood together 80 years because they knew that there was something they had to build and it would fall apart if they left. So they suffered, they cried, they got ulcers, they got unhappy, and they fought through. And then when they got to the end, they're like, dog, we made it. So you got to ask yourself the question, is your goal to make it or to make it happily, joyfully, and successfully? See, my goal is not just to make it work. My goal is to make it the epitome of what works, to make it the ultimate level, the acme, you know, the highest peak of what works. So when people look at it, they be like, you know what? There's nothing else they could have done with their lives that would have made it better. I don't want to sputter through. That's like a guy talking about, I'm going to run the marathon. You want to win? No, I just want to finish. That winning stuff, that's overrated. I just want to get across. And if it takes 3 weeks and the cameras and the line is gone and nobody's there, I just want to get that 26 miles and I'll be happy. I'm going to go sit down. And that's how most of us look at relationships. We just look at the idea of making it through it or making it work. We don't look at the characteristics or the nature of it. So yeah. But I mean, ask them, why did I get married? I mean, for me, simple question, why would I get married to sleep by myself?